Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to hear more content from me, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video. And if you're interested in a personal consultation, please check out the video description. I've left the information there. Thank you. Today I'm going to talk about the final video on the Ascendants predictions for 2021, namely Virgo. Once again, I do apologize. It has taken so long, and that, sorry Virgo for, turning out to be last, but, that was the way it was. And so let me get straight into the description. So first of all, I'm going to start as usual with the introduction about how I did the transits. And as you're going to see on the screen, I have divided the year of 2021 into two separate charts. The first of them is for when Jupiter is in Capricorn and will be conjunct Saturn and Pluto, and which is going to be for roughly half the year on and off. And the second chart is going to be for when Jupiter is in Aquarius and Saturn and Pluto will stay in Capricorn. And also for these transits, I have looked at Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, to a lesser degree, Rahu and Ketu, because these are relevant for a year transit. And also I have marked on the screen the aspects that these planets make. In Vedic astrology, Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu make so-called special aspects. So Saturn makes an aspect, first of all, in the house that it sits in. So it aspects the first, the third, the 7th, and the 10th houses from where it sits, and I've marked them with the color gray on the charts. And Jupiter, Rahu, Ketu, all of them make aspects on the 1st, the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th houses from where they sit. And I've marked those with yellow for Jupiter, pink for Rahu, and blue for Ketu. And so this is to help you visualize which houses and therefore which areas of your life are going to be most affected and how they're going to be affected. And also, like I've written on the screen, Saturn rules the 5th and 6th houses for your ascendant, for Virgo Ascendant. Jupiter rules the 4th and 7th houses. As you can see. So first of all, let me talk a little bit about the fact that Rahu is falling into Taurus, and it will stay in Taurus throughout the year. It will be falling into your 9th house, aspecting the 1st and 5th houses, all of the fire houses, which have to do with creative personal expression, individuality, vitality, and a host of other subjects that I'm going to discuss in depth in a bit. So all of these areas are going to be given a boost by Rahu. Even though Rahu is a functional malefic for your ascendant, Rahu still signifies, a boost in energy and materialism, and a drive to succeed, especially in the house that it sits, but also the houses that it aspects. It also brings, some nonconformism to these areas, and also possibly some foreign influences, meaning foreign cultures influencing these areas of your life. And especially your area of the 9th house, which is to do with religion and your philosophy of life. This will be particularly affected by Rahu. So this leads me to believe that this is a year when you might rethink your belief system. You might be attracted to unconventional ideas by comparison to whatever your past belief system has been. So you might go in the totally opposite direction this time, or at the very least you're going to be questioning your belief system and the way you view the higher plan of life, or if you even believe in one. Ketu will be in the 3rd house, as you can see, in Scorpio for you, aspecting your 7th and 11th houses, which all of them are the houses of relationships and social activity. And And this tells me that these areas are going to be falling in the background for you this year, because, well, Ketu represents basically a releasing or a diminishment of the energies that it touches and the areas that it touches. And especially with your Rahu being in the 9th house and aspecting the fire houses, makes me believe that relationships are going to take a background, background view to your individual expression and all the things that are signified by Rahu and the houses that it aspects. Of course, as usual, all of these will be particularly affecting you if you're going through Rahu or Ketu, Mahadasha or Antardasha. Same for any of the other planets. So if you're going through, let's say, Jupiter or Saturn, Mahadasha or Antardasha, you will be particularly affected by that particular planet and all the houses that it affects, either by rulership or by aspects. Just a little parenthesis. And especially with Ketu being in your 3rd house, your communication might become a little bit either more subversive, as in like you're going to purposefully maybe become a little bit more manipulative with your words, like you're going to be using fewer words but placed strategically, or simply you're going to become more manipulative, or on the other hand, it could simply show that you might actually have trouble expressing your ideas clearly, because, yeah, I'm going to get into it in a bit in more detail when I get into each house individually. But yeah, this has been the overall expression for Rahu and Ketu in 2021. So now to get into more detail. The chart 1 phase, as you can see on the screen, this applies to the time frame from around January 1st, 2021 to around April 5th, 2021, and also from September 14th, roughly 2021 to November 20th, 2021. I say roughly because obviously you have to calculate your chart considering your location as well to know exactly, because it's going to switch. Jupiter is going to switch signs obviously in different time frames for different locations. So yeah, it's roughly for all of these. So for this time, Jupiter is going to be in Capricorn, and it's going to be conjunct Saturn and Pluto, like I said. And clearly in your case, the most affected house, or the house that is heaviest in emphasis, will be the 5th house, as you can see there, where this conjunction resides, and it's also being aspected by Rahu. And also taking into account the rulerships of Saturn and Jupiter, this shows that areas to do with the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th houses are all of them coming together in your 5th house. So what I can say about this is, what I am getting the impression is that there will be an increased emphasis on romantic relationships this year, because the 5th house is the house of romantic relationships. It's also the house of one of the houses of education, namely it has to do with about mid-range in education, somewhere between high school and graduate school. Actually without graduate school, so somewhere between high school and college. High school and college including. And it also rules things like creative expression, like I did mention. It also rules speculative gains. So all in all, this gives me the feeling that it is actually quite likely for you to find a new love interest during this year, or during this time, especially because the ruler of the 7th house is Jupiter. So while Jupiter is sitting in your 5th, basically the ruler of the 7th is going into your 5th, which happens to be one of the classical aspects that show a love aspect, a love marriage, sorry. So obviously this also depends on your individual chart, but overall, actually, even regardless of whether you have love marriage aspects or not, this aspect based on your ascendant tells me that it is very likely that you're going to fall in love this year, or there are higher chances this year, compared to, or during this time compared to all the rest. And again, this is especially true for you if you are going through the Jupiter or Saturn Mahadasha or Antardasha. Or if you're going through the Capricorn Charadasha. And another thing that I can say, and also if you are interested in, learning more about whether you have the love marriage aspects or not, you can check out the video that I made. I think it was called Late Marriage Aspects or Delay in Marriage. And I talk about love marriage aspects there, just in case you're curious to know more. And what else can I say? But yeah, especially if you have love marriage aspects and if you're going through one of the Mahadashas or Charadashas that I mentioned, this might very well be the year when you meet somebody that can turn into a long-term potential relationship. So something that can lead to marriage or having a family or all that. Another thing that I can say is your education. It's really weird. With your education, on the one hand, it could be a little bit delayed, but on the other hand, it really depends on your willingness to work for it, because both Jupiter and Saturn are there. And for you, Saturn is a functional malefic, but Jupiter is generally a benefic. It's not a functional benefic for Virgo Ascendant, but it is a benefic, and it is quite strong in your chart, ruling the Pisces, ruling the 7th for relationships, and because of this, is your education could be very good if you work hard on it, but it's really directly proportional to your ability to work for something. And again, this goes for not just formal education in the sense of like getting a college degree, but it goes for any kind of training that you might want to take, any courses or specializing courses or stuff like that. So Jupiter being there shows increased chances of either finishing your degree if you are enrolled in one, or finding some form of education that is good for you. But Saturn being there also shows that it's going to be, it's going to require a lot of discipline and a lot of effort on your part to succeed in education. And this is also true for romantic interests as well. So Saturn there makes it so that you really need to basically work for whatever it is that you want. So even though opportunities may show themselves, unless you work hard for them, they're not going to happen. Another thing that I can say is your work and your health can somehow affect your creativity negatively, because the 6th house ruler is going into the 5th house. Jupiter can bring speculative gains, especially from partnerships or any kind of partnership contracts, whether they are with a romantic partner or with a business partner, and also from real estate, or somehow from your mother's side of the family. Your home and your romantic partner can boost your creativity or can inspire your creativity and your educative efforts. They will also boost relationships with your children, if you have children. And also another thing about children is, again, especially if you are a woman and you're going through the Jupiter Mahadasha or Charadasha, and you have this ascendant, so Jupiter is in your 5th, this is a good time to have children, basically. Another thing, right, so this is pretty much what I could say about the 5th house. Now, moving on to the 7th house, as you can see, it's aspected by Ketu and Saturn, and this shows that romantic partnerships will become a bit colder during this time. So if you are already in a relationship, and actually this is not just about romantic partnerships, it's about partnerships in general, but especially with regards to your romantic relationships, they can become a little bit colder, down to the bare necessities. meaning that there will probably not be too much atmosphere of lovey-dovey stuff. But with Saturn being there, there's probably at least a basic stability. And now, of course, this also depends on what else is going on in your chart, and depends on how strong your 7th house is, and what, transits are happening for you. Because if it's really bad, if it is really bad, the worst case scenario is there could be a breakup here, or a separation. So let's say if you're going through Saturn Mahadasha and Ketu Antardasha, and both of those, are having low scores in your chart, or your 7th house has a low score on the Ashtakvarga tables, then it is likely to bring a breakup, for instance, or an ending of a relationship, or an ending of a business, because 7th house is also the house of business. But otherwise, just generally, it tends to bring a kind of stability to the relationship that you already have. But again, there will be less fluffiness, less romance going on. And with Ketu's influence there could also just be less interest in working on your relationship. So a relationship could die of neglect with this kind of aspect. So be careful with that. Try not to take the partner for granted or to neglect their needs. And also another thing that can happen is Ketu aspecting the 7th is showing a need for spiritual connection with your partner. So you're going to feel, you're going to be more attracted to occult stuff in the relationship for some reason. Occult stuff, you're going to feel the need to share this interest with your partner more. And you're also going to feel the need to connect on a spiritual level with your partner. That's pretty much what I can say. Right, the 9th house. The 9th house, as you can see, is occupied by Rahu, and it's also aspected by Jupiter. So during this time, you will have increased opportunities of pursuing higher education. This means graduate school and beyond, or of course specializing courses again, or research projects. Everything to do with like PhD and above is ruled by the 9th house. It also shows that your overall optimism and your faith in life will be better, at least compared to all the previous time when Jupiter was not aspecting it. Can also, and this will generally give you a boost in optimism and faith, and it will help you overcome challenges. And another thing being Rahu there will increase your interest in foreign cultures and foreign travel, especially, and also interest in all kinds of subjects connected to New Age and esoteric issues, including things like astrology, tarot, numerology, transcendental meditation, Kabbalah, etc. Maybe Kabbalah is more of a Ketu thing, actually. So yeah, without Kabbalah. But yeah, all of this stuff is going to become more interesting to you during this time. And 11th house is going to be aspected by Ketu, Saturn, and Jupiter. So again, for you, Saturn, Ketu, and Rahu are functional malefic. So you need to kind of bear that in mind in general. Because unless there are positive aspects to overcome the negative, the overall expression will be more likely negative. But in this case, because Jupiter is also casting an aspect, that's going to be positive. Because for you, Jupiter is not a malefic, it's not a benefic either, but it is the great benefic. So where you see Jupiter aspecting, that's going to be more likely a positive outcome to that particular area of life. So what was I gonna say? Right, so the 11th house, right? It shows increased opportunities of socializing during this time because Jupiter is aspecting there. It also shows that conversely, actually, because Ketu is aspecting, you're gonna have a lack of interest in socializing, friends, older siblings, stuff like that. There will be increased obligations towards your older siblings and your friends, but also increase of material gains from your career efforts. So yeah, that's pretty much what I can say. And the first house is aspected by Rahu and Jupiter. It shows a tendency to overindulge and maybe put on weight, so you need to watch out for that. And Rahu there aspecting will show that you can easily stand out during this time, so if you want to assert yourself, and again, this is positive for, I mean, I don't know, any area where you have to be in the forefront of an activity, or you have to be like the image of something. So people are going to notice you more easily, and especially because Rahu's there, you're going to feel the need to change something about your appearance during this time, like to do something unusual with your appearance, with your look, like, I don't know, a weird hair color or tattoo or piercing or something. Now the second house aspected completely by Saturn. Of course, there's all of these depend on what other planets are sitting there in your chart, but Saturn aspecting the second house will show that relations with the family of origin, your family of origin, will be marked by increased responsibilities during this time. So this could mean a number of things, like you would have to take care of your families, you have to take care of your family because they're sick, or because you need to take care of their finances, or whatever the situation may be. You will feel an increase of responsibilities towards your family materially. They will feel like you will feel a little bit burdened. And also, literally, your finances. The second house is the house of wealth and the house of literally cash money, or cash flow. And so this shows that basically during this time, Saturn will make you work hard for your money. And in order to maintain, positive balance, or to stay on top of your financial needs, you need to be very, very disciplined and very frugal. So if you happen to gain a little bit more money one day, especially with Jupiter there in the fifth with speculative gains, so like just because you win, let's say you win a small amount of money in the lottery, like don't squander it or something like that. That's pretty much what it says, because you need to be frugal, you need to be thrifty, you need to really plan your finances, and also your finances will be in direct proportion to your efforts again. So you're gonna make money if you're willing to work hard for it. Right. Ketu in the third house. This is quite interesting, because the third house is the house of, well, several things, but what it mainly represents is the house of efforts in Vedic astrology, the house of your courage, your willpower, and it's also called one of the Kama houses, or the house of desire, one of the houses of desire. And they say that malefics do well here, but Ketu is a planet that shows detachment. So Ketu is all about like the spiritual world. It's literally the shadow planet, or like has to do with the shadow world. So it rules things like, if you believe in this stuff, demons and angels and all that stuff, like everything that is not in this dimension, everything that Stephen King used to write about, that's all Ketu. Actually, funny enough, Stephen King has Moon conjunct Ketu, so, and that says it all. And David Lynch has Venus conjunct Ketu, so this is just a side note, and like I'm probably going to use this in a future video. But yeah, Ketu represents, things like the collective subconscious, the personal subconscious mind, instincts. It's everything, everything that is kind of like subtle and fluid and very subtle energies, things that you sort of see with the corner of your eye, everything that is creepy and stuff. So Ketu generally multiplies anxieties wherever it sits. So what this can mean in your case is you will tend to be really fearful. That's my feeling. Like, you're either going to be fearful or you're going to resort to, like I said, more subtle, subversive ways to get whatever it is that you want. So let's say instead of approaching something directly, you're going to go about it by trying to maybe manipulate a person or trying to go Inception on somebody. Like if you've seen the movie Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio, that kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that Ketu would do. They will just plant an idea in somebody's brain and wait for it to grow roots and leaves and take over. But what this shows is like, yeah, this could really increase your anxiety throughout the year, actually. So the funny thing is you might actually go into things like I mentioned, Kabbalah, or like things that are really occult, and like even Wicca or spells. You're going to be really attracted to these things during this year when it comes to getting whatever it is that you want. So maybe this year, unlike other times, you are going to be more open to the idea of, let's say, trying spells to achieve some kind of favors or something. So if you are on that track, be careful. Just saying. And also what the third house also shows is your thoughts, your ability to communicate. Also shows younger siblings, short distance travel, including errands. So yeah, there might be somehow anxieties or something strange going on with all of these areas, like some kind of confusing situations. Another thing that can be said is just that you're going to travel a lot in your mind, or like you're going to have a rich, you're going to enjoy being inside of your head, especially throughout this year. Yeah, that's pretty much what I can say, right? So now for the chart 2 phase, when Jupiter moves into Aquarius. So again, as you can see on the screen, this applies for the time frame from around April 5th, 2021 to September 14th, 2021, also from November 20th, 2021 to around December 31st, 2021. And once again, you see there, Saturn rules those houses, Jupiter rules those houses. So Saturn rules the 5th and the 6th for your ascendant, Jupiter rules the 4th and 7th for your ascendant. So Jupiter moves into Aquarius, into your 6th house. If you ask me, this is going to be probably a little bit better. This time it's probably going to be better than the rest of the time, because Jupiter moving into the 6th house will aspect your 10th, your 12th, your 2nd house. So these are the money / career houses, especially Jupiter in the 6th. This shows increased opportunities for getting a job if you are looking for a job, or changing for something more profitable. Again, this is going to be especially true if you are going through the Jupiter Mahadasha or Antardasha. What else was what was I going to say? Yeah, so the 6th house, it rules jobs, it rules employees. Unfortunately, it also rules enemies, so that's not necessarily a good thing. Although, in your case, I wouldn't worry too much, because Virgo doesn't have strong enemies in general, unless you are somebody who has a particular configuration where maybe you have a lot of enemies. This is a time when your enemies technically could cause you more harm, because Jupiter is helping them. But this is a bit too dramatic, maybe, it depends on each person. Another thing that 6th house rules is it rules pets, which is very interesting. Jupiter in the 6th can definitely show that, you might get a pet during this time, or it's going to be a good time for you. It's going to help you if you get a pet, for your mental health, for your physical health as well, because the 6th is also the house of health, the physical health and mental health, actually. And it's also the house of subordinates, right? So if you're a manager, you're going to have good subordinates, or relationships with your subordinates is going to get better during this time. And another thing, aspecting the 10th shows, again, increase in social status, increase in career opportunities. Since Jupiter is ruling your 7th house and falls into your 6th house, 7th house is the house of business, and it also rules the 4th house, which is the house of real estate. So you are especially going to be favored if you're trying to take some activities, some money-making activities in these areas. So things to do with business, real estate, contracts, negotiations, partnership-based business, even lawyers or people, anybody who deals with contracts or on one-on-one situations. That's shown by the 7th house. And the 12th house is interesting because the 12th house represents losses or expenditures. And Jupiter aspecting your 12th house shows that your expenditures or your losses will decrease during this time. And another interpretation for this is that if you are forced to end a contract during this time, like let's say you were employed and you want to quit your job, or like maybe you're going to be laid off or something, this is more likely during this time to end in you getting some kind of compensation because of the aspect of Jupiter on the 12th house. And also what it can show is, to a lesser extent, increased opportunities for long distance travel. And aspect on the 2nd house, again, your finances are going to improve during this time. Most likely because the 6th and the 10th are also aspected, which basically shows that because you are getting more opportunities of employment, your finances will get better as well. Or your cash flow will get better, and your relationship with your family of origin is going to get better as well. Now, the consequence of Jupiter leaving the 5th, the 9th, the 11th, and the 1st houses by aspect will show that Saturn will overpower these houses more during this time. So Saturn is going to be left alone to aspect all the other houses that Jupiter was previously aspecting. So this also shows more frustrations and obstacles, making you work harder to get what you want in these particular fields. So particular fields meaning areas to do with education, speculative gains, creative expression, children, teaching, physical fitness, personal assertion, friendships, and social circles. So basically, yeah, all the houses where Jupiter was aspecting during the chart 1 phase and now is no longer aspecting are going to be a little bit more difficult during this time by comparison, because you're no longer going to have Jupiter's help. So this has been it, and once again, I hope you have found it useful, and if you liked it, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and also if you are willing to give any feedback, would be much appreciated in the comment section. And also if you're interested in a personal consultation, please email me at the email address I will leave in the video description. Thank you.